Good afternoon, I'm Giovanni Dennis with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching online at onespotmedia.com. Jamaica recorded 20 new confirmed cases of the coronavirus on Monday. This pushes the country's tally of confirmed cases to 12,752. St. James and Trelawney recorded 8 cases each on Monday. The other 4 were in Westmoreland. Now the local death toll remains at 298. 26 deaths are still under investigations. 78 persons are hospitalized with the respiratory illness. 8 are critically ill. Not proactive enough, the opposition is blasting the government for taking too long to shut down the Lime and Maiden Cays. The shutdown was announced on Monday following a TVJ news report on Sunday highlighting yacht parties and flagrant COVID-19 control breaches at Maiden Cay. The opposition spokesman on health says this has taken too long, but the local government minister says not so. Widespread outrage at the weekend that scores of yacht operators were gathering in numbers, some drinking and raving to music, breaching the disaster risk management order prohibiting such gatherings. The story was highlighted in a TVJ report Sunday, and by Monday, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management announced the closure of both Lime and Maiden Cays. But this should have happened before, so says opposition spokesman on health, Dr. Maurice Guy.
It suggests that they have not been proactive enough. Just making the announcements and without properly monitoring the situation does not lend itself to proper governance. We would have expected that the government, having announced that the beaches would be closed, that there should be at least some, at the very basic level, some cursory patrolling of the areas by the security forces. Maiden and Maiden Cay and Lime Cay, we know, are 2 of the beaches in Jamaica, albeit they are small islands off the coast of Jamaica. The fact, however, is that what seems to be happening is that there is a suggestion there are 2 Jamaicas, one for those who are affluent and one for the less affluent.
But the local government minister is defending the government's response.
We have been very proactive and we have been taking actions. The situation across the 2 Cays as something that has been featured in the media quite recently. Just recently, this has been getting the kind of publicity. I mean, it's not every day people go out there, so it is difficult for us to get information on those locations. And once we get the information, we have taken the actions which are necessary. This is not a time to be critical of decisions that the government is taking in the fight against the coronavirus. This is a time when all the measures by the government should be supported without any hint of being sarcastic in the comments.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton, in the meantime, insists the government acts promptly when issues like these rise to the level of a public health concern.
From a public health perspective, we tend to assess situations. We have seen a number of activities, even though the protocols are out. We continue to monitor the environment. When issues become a problem, which requires intervention in that direct way, then we intervene. My own view is that in the case of this particular situation, persons have always gone to that facility to relax, and it's something that is allowed. Once it became a challenge in terms of the numbers and the risks associated with those numbers, then the authorities intervene.
Dr. Guy, in the meantime, wants the announced ticketing system implemented urgently. He argues people will continue to breach COVID restrictions unless and until they are forced to pay.
I queried of the Prime Minister in relation to my asking what about this ticketing system that was announced from September of last year. To date, we do not have it. All we have been told is that the Ministry of Justice, the Attorney General's Department, they are looking into this. We need to have that part of the legislation up and running. And unless people start paying where it hurts most in terms of their pockets, then we will continually have this flagrant disregard for the rules.
In response to the concerns, Mr. Mackenzie disclosed that tougher laws are now being drafted.
We are going to be getting tougher because right now there is an amendment that is being made to the Disaster Risk Act. It is being drafted now. You know, we can't just act outside of the law because we have to be careful. So there's an amendment that is being made that is going to make the penalties much more punitive. But in the meantime, the security forces are doing what they can. But, you know, let's be frank, it is the people that have to buy in and to police. This is not just for the police.
In the meantime, the government is once again insisting there is no double standard in its approach to managing the COVID-19 pandemic. Local Government Minister Desmond McKenzie says he will be the first to apologize if people feel mistreated, but argues there is no such directive from the administration.
This government, we are not in any shape or form displaying any preferential treatment to any sector of the society when it comes on to enforcing the regulations under the Disaster Risk Act. We're not. I will challenge anybody to say that there is any directive at all coming from the administration as to how to treat a sector of the society. One shoes fit everybody in this country. If people feel offended or hurt by that, I will be the first to apologize and to say that this administration has never and will never support any actions that will penalize one sector of the society in preference over one.
The opposition People's National Party is calling on the government to immediately release payment to thousands of government pensioners who did not receive their pension checks or deposits for the month of December. Opposition spokesman on finance Julian Robinson says especially in the Christmas season, a delay in the payment creates untold and unnecessary hardships for the pensioners. Mr. Robinson says he knows pensioners who submitted their life certificates for the quarter ending December 31, 2020 and received payments for October and November, but none in December. He says the issue is clearly a fault in the Accountant General's department and needs to be resolved quickly.
It appears as if there's an issue with the Accountant General's department in terms of life certificates being returned to them. But the issue that we have is that pensioners would have gone through the month of December without payment. And in most cases, the government tends to rectify issues like this at the next payment cycle, which would be toward the third week in January. We are calling on the government to make these payments sooner, like the first week of January, because it means pensioners would have gone 2 months without any payment. And for the majority of them, they depend solely on these pension payments to survive. So the issue needs to be treated with alacrity, given the large number of pensioners who would have been affected by this issue.
And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when we return. Welcome back, and we're continuing the news. The Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, said it is not in agreement with the move to cut temporary teachers this Thursday. Prince Moore has the details.
As part of preparation efforts for the resumption of face-to-face classes in all schools come January, the Ministry of Education said it would have provided additional staffing support for schools for the academic year 2020-2021. But due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, that plan may never come to fruition, as the ministry says the reopening of schools did not go as planned. As a result, the ministry says the engagement of temporary staff would not be supported beyond December 31. And the Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, has taken issue with this. JTA President Jasford Gabriel says the teachers who were given contracts for up to August 2021 are being terminated without adequate notice. In addition, he argues that based on the length of their contracts, the teachers have already made plans.
I was also thinking that there's going to be even greater need for these teachers, given that we are moving into more phase reopening of schools for face-to-face. And even without that, the teachers have been gainfully employed and engaged online, giving a lot of support to the process. And so, like I said, when we have further discussions, we are confident that we'll be able to get more clarity and to bring this situation to an amicable solution.
With just a few days left before the resumption of the new academic year, the JTA president says he would not have expected cuts at this time.
They are now being informed with less than 2 weeks to go before the start of a new term that their services would be terminated. And so we have already initiated talks with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. We believe that, something needs to be worked out in a more amicable way for these teachers. The fact is they would have been supporting the online teaching and learning process as well as face-to-face duties. And if it is that their services would no longer be required, certainly we would expect a longer period of notice, at least 2 weeks.
The JTA has already reached out to the ministry to discuss the matter. Prince Moore, TVJ News.
Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries Floyd Green says he will be meeting with the Jamaica Customs Agency to discuss the issue of taxes imposed on fishing supplies. Last evening, several fishermen in Rocky Point, Clarendon, complained that they were unable to repair or construct their boats due to the government-imposed restrictions. Mr. Green told our news centre that the protection of revenue should not be to the detriment of the fisheries industry.
I've reached out to the Ministry of Finance and we're going to coordinate a meeting with Jamaica Customs, because what we want to ensure, and this is a problem that we're seeing not just in our aquaculture sector, we're seeing it also with our capture fishers right now. We have a significant challenge where it appears that Customs is changing the charges that they levy on items such as fiberglass, which is significantly used in the construction of our boats, our boat construction industry, and that cannot be allowed to happen. At the end of the day, what I've said to the National Fisheries Authority, one, we have to provide customs with people who are registered so that they know the bona fide people who are treating in the fisheries sector.
President of the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise Alliance, Donovan Wignall, is calling for an increase in the US $50 duty-free limit for online shopping. Speaking this morning on TVJ's Smile Jamaica, Mr. Wignall explained that since the onset of COVID-19, more persons have engaged in online shopping. Therefore, the limit should be increased to $100.
We're unable to travel, and as I said before, it's a matter of give and take. The Customs Department not doing badly, to be honest with you. Revenues are down all across the board, public sector and private sector, and we get the burden a little bit across the board. So going to $100 is a nice way of helping out the purchasing public. It's not too impacting our local businesses. Our local businesses have pivoted to online shopping as well. But it's a nice place to be. $100, a lot more people will be able to afford to shop online.
Mr. Wignall also raised concern about the consolidating of shipments less than $50 each and the charging duty. He says the cost of shipments should be predictable and not left to the discretion of the Customs Department.
In that area, it's treated as discretionary by the Customs Department, and very often they do give the allowance of the minimis for the commercial shipments. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but it would be good if it just becomes a rule where your costs are predictable. You know exactly how much you're going to pay, and it's not left up to the discretion of the customs.
The police is asking for the public's help in locating a woman who went missing nearly a month ago. 79-year-old Esmina Wright is from Browns Hall District in Dry Harbour, St. Catherine, and was last seen on December 1st. At the time she went missing, she was wearing a floral dress and plaited hair. Miss Wright is 5 feet 5 inches tall and was last seen at Point Hill, another district in St. Catherine, a week after she disappeared. Anyone knowing the whereabouts are being asked to contact the nearest police station, and that should be anyone knowing the whereabouts is being asked to contact the nearest police. A Jamaican woman is among 35 U.S. immigrants who have filed a class action suit against the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE Irwin County Detention Center. This over allegations they were subjected to non-consensual and invasive gynecological procedures. The surgeries were later found to be unnecessary and left some of the women unable to have children. Now we must warn you that some viewers may find some of the descriptions offensive. Jamaican-born Wendy Doe is among dozens of women claiming medical abuse by the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Ms. Doe has been deported to Jamaica since May this year, but is among more than 40 women filing a class action suit against ICE. She was detained after going to court to pay a traffic ticket in 2018. After being at the Irwin County facility for more than a year, she reported stomach pains. That's when her medical hell started.
So I made a claim to the medical department, and they didn't do anything until one day. They came for me, didn't know where I was going. They woke me up 5 o'clock. And when I went there, it was Dr. Admin. He performed X-ray and a sonogram on me and told me that I got multiple cysts in me. So I asked him what that meant. He didn't answer.
She asked the nurses at the facility for answers, but didn't get any. It was after a second visit to the doctor that she was told that there were masses in her ovary that appeared cancerous.
I couldn't see out of my eyes. My blood pressure was all the way up and my vision was lost. And next morning again, they came, another morning, 5 o'clock, told me I'm going to the doctor. I thought it was for what I was going through. When I went to the doctor, they told me I had surgery. But basically what I'm going through, I was like out of my mind and wasn't, concentrating on what they were saying because I had headache, couldn't see out of my eyes or anything.
After the surgery and persistent queries, she was advised that her fallopian tubes had been removed. This means she cannot have more children.
When I woke up, I noticed that I couldn't wake up at all because I was on anesthesia. When I went back to the facility, I didn't know as yet. I noticed there were 3 holes in my stomach. So I was asking them, what is this? They say I got surgery, but they don't know what type of surgery I had. After request the medical paper, they brought it back to me. That's when I know that my fallopian tubes was out.
Ms. Doe was deported shortly after, leaving her children in the U.S., including an 11-year-old who is disabled. She is also seeking to have her deportation overturned. Project South is working with the immigrants claiming abuse.
So this recent lawsuit that Project South filed along with our partners, the National Immigration Project of the National Lawyers Guild, Immigrants' Rights Clinic at Columbia Law, David Dreyer, and several other law school clinics, is a class action lawsuit filed on behalf of women detained at Irvin who have been subjected to invasive and non-consensual gynecological procedures, that is medical abuse. So in total, we had more than 40 women who filed sworn testimony in court, despite consistent attempts by ICE to silence them.
Ms. Doe was deported in May after her surgery. And we should credit our colleagues at Democracy Now! For making that story available. The Cedar Valley Main Road, which was rendered impassable as a result of heavy rains recently, is now open to single-lane traffic. A section of the road that is currently under construction was damaged, forcing residents to use other routes. Vincent Brown, who has been living in the community for more than 20 years, explains.
I am pleased to see how far it reached right now, because a couple weeks ago we got to walk on leather. People have to stop right here, and come out of the vehicle and go across pan leather. Well, right now today, I am pleased to see where it reached and motor vehicle can go back and forward.
Now, the breakaway had sparked fury among residents, but Mr. Brown says things have now improved.
When I go to clinic, I have to ask somebody to help me down off of the ladder. And right now, me not have to beg nobody to help me. They walk across now.
In news overseas, Croatia has been hit by a 6.4 magnitude earthquake, leaving at least one dead. We have more from the CNN.
Now, it hit in the central region of Croatia, just 3 kilometers from the town of Petrinja. 20 to 30,000 population in the town of Petrinja. You heard what our reporter from affiliate N1 on the ground said, one loss of life to be deplored at this stage. But Hala, you and I both know, unfortunately and sadly, how this thing goes with earthquakes is that it takes a few hours for the full extent of the damage, including loss of life, to be revealed, because you need emergency services to go through the rubble. That is what is happening right now. The Prime Minister tweeted that all national resources were being mobilized, and that includes help from the military. So they're focusing on the flashpoint town of Petrinja right now, you know, removing the rubble, finding victims, any potential victims. The priority right now, Hala, of course, is saving lives.
In sports, India bounced back from their humiliating opening test defeat to beat host Australia by 8 wickets on day 4 of the second test in Melbourne and level the 4-match series at 1-1. Resuming on 133 for 6, Australia were bowled out for 200 in their second innings in the morning session on the 4th day, setting India only 70 to win at the MCG. Debutant Mohammad Siraj took 3 for 37, including Cameron Green, who offered some resistance in making 45 for Australia. India slipped to 19 for 2 before Shubman Gill with 35 not out and standing captain and man of the match Ajinkaya Rahane, an unbeaten 27, saw them home at 70 for 2. It was a remarkable turnaround for India, who were bowled out for 36 in an 8-wicket defeat in Adelaide just over a week ago. The third test of a thrilling 4-match series begins on January 6 in Sydney. Scores in the match: Australia 195 and 200 all out, India 326 and 70 for 2. And that's the Midday News. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.